Hello and welcome to Swarajya. You're listening to Swarajya Conversations with me, Sharan Setty. Today I'm joined by two very special guests who've come all the way to Delhi to talk about their book and to give us insights about their writing and a lot more. I'm joined by authors Amish Tripathi and Bhavna Roy. Amish, Bhavna, thank you so much. Namaste and welcome to Swarajya.
Thank you. Pleasure. Swaraj is one of my favorite magazines, so it's a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. We got our cue there.
As is mine.
And we will do your plug towards the end. But let me begin by asking you this. How's the experience with writing with each other? Especially because when you're writing a book as deep as Idols or Dharma, it's a lot of thought, it's a lot of arguments, I'm presuming. So how has it been? Maybe Bhavna can go first.
Sharan, I love to say this. In the creative space, when we work together with a partner, it is either impossible, you cannot do it, or it is a flow, extremely easy. It depends on the chemistry of the participants in the partnership. And with Amish and I, it has been an absolute flow. For multiple reasons. Primarily, we come from the same परंपरा, संस्कृति, हमारे घर में जो रहने का ढंग था, हमारी जो पारिवारिक जो हमारा तरीका है, हमारे वैल्यूज़ हैं, they are very, very, जड़ें बहुत strong हैं. And we both have a philosophical bent of mind. I'm 8 years older to Amish, so I'm a bit of a second mother. बहन कम, माँ ज़्यादा हूँ, and which ensures that there's a lot of respect in this direction. As a family, as a brother and sister, we are very comfortable with hierarchy. But since we are comfortable with hierarchy, professionally, I also understand that in my opinion, what Amish doesn't understand about book writing is not worth knowing. And I'm happy to be guided by him. Mm-hmm. And as for the last word, it always is, it always has been, and it always should be his.
Such a wonderful thing to say.
But even more, I should say that look, in our family, everyone reads a lot.
Right.
Our parents read a lot. They used to read largely in Hindi, and so therefore, I think children end up rather than doing what their parents tell them to do, they end up aping their parents.
Correct. Yes.
They do what they see their parents do.
Absolutely.
And since our parents read a lot, all four of us read a lot.
Yeah.
So, but of all of us, Didi perhaps reads the most.
Achha.
Yeah. So I read maybe 5-6 books per month. Mm-hmm. Didi reads far more. And so therefore, particularly when it's a philosophical subject, obviously, I respect her opinions a lot more. Mm-hmm. And she's read a lot more of other ancient traditions as well.
Right.
So our own, dharmic traditions, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, that we've learned from our own family and we've read. But what many Indians don't realize is actually there's a lot of similarities, a lot to learn from the ancient so-called pagan traditions of other parts of the world as well. The ancient Greco-Romans, ancient Egyptians, ancient Celts, Mesopotamians, Central Americans. And Didi has read a lot of that too. So there's a lot of, that global understanding that also comes into the book. So it's a delight to work with her and learn from her.
I'm sure it is. Let me begin by asking you this. Why idols? Because idol worshipping is something that's been described to us growing up in schools as a form of practice or a philosophy that we tend to have, especially among the Hindus. So actually, when you look at it, it's not too strange for us because obviously we are practicers. We are practitioners of it. But maybe from an alien culture's perspective, it's something different. So is there, from what lens are you approaching this and when did you decide to start this?
Sad part is, I think we Hindus ourselves have become defensive about idol worshipping or murthi puja. Most of my readers are the youth.
Yeah.
At a lit fest, I had a youth, college kid. He got up and said, "Amish, I love your books. I'm a proud Hindu, but I'm obviously not an idol worshipper." And it was a strange thing to say, so I said, why? He said, "No, I know idols aren't gods.
Yeah.
The real God is outside. Now he was with his friends, so I didn't want to embarrass him. I let him get on to his
Right.
question. That was just one incident. There were various incidents like this that both of us felt. Consider this song, pathar ki pooja karke, haari mein haari. Right? I'm sure you must have heard that song.
Yeah.
This is India. We are among the last surviving idol worshipping cultures in the world. In a place like this, a song like this gets written,
Right.
gets composed, it gets sung. And there are people who are basically largely idol worshippers who make this song a hit.
Yeah.
Right? And much of the ancient
Very
world,
unconsciously so.
much of the ancient world was actually idol worshipping.
Yeah.
Right? Most of them died out. In fact, we have to say it honestly, they were killed. Right? They were all massacred out of existence. We're among the last people who survived because our ancestors never surrendered. They kept fighting. Right?
Yeah.
And I think in some ways, Hindus are exhibiting a version of the battered wife syndrome.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard of that psychological theory. In fact, it's
You've used
pretty
that in
much,
the book.
yeah, it's pretty
You've
much
already
proven.
taken away 3 questions from me, so I'll have to make up something.
No, but it is, it is actually what happens. You find so many people, and sadly, there are women who suffer from this.
Yeah.
Husbands beat them, and the women end up blaming themselves
Right.
rather than their own husbands. Right? I must have done something wrong. I must have added more salt in the food, or I must have done something which forced my husband to beat me. Right? And if someone comes and tells that woman, it's not your fault, it's your husband's fault, she'll get angry with the person trying to help her.
Yeah.
Right? I think Hindus are exhibiting a version of the battered wife syndrome. For 2000 years, the entire world, all idol worshippers have suffered greatly.
Yeah.
Right? Just simply for being idol worshippers, not for committing any sin.
Right.
Right? Simply for being idol worshippers. Have many Hindus ourselves started believing this? शायद कुछ गड़बड़ होगी. ऐसे गधे हम लोग पत्थर पे थूक लगा तो हम पूजा करना शुरू कर देंगे. Okay.
Right. And you brand that as resistance,
Yeah,
maybe.
but we need to explain why it is so beautiful, why it is so powerful. And that's the attempt with this book. That
Perhaps
we are
Bhavna
very
can
proud Murti Pujaks.
Come in where you explain why it's important to us.
Sharan, to begin with, to just deepen this point further, because it's very close to my heart. You said that idol worshipping Murti Puja would be particularly strange to alien cultures.
Yeah.
I think that's heartbreaking because unke purvaj idol worshippers the.
Right.
Without exception, the entire planet was an idol worshipping planet.
Yeah.
Till the Abrahamic religions actually made it at best silly and at worst evil, devil worshipping. And this was एक सिद्धांतिक रूप से this was written in actually Abrahamic religions के जो सबसे बड़े भाई हैं, Judaism.
Yeah.
Their holy books are the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. And in especially in Deuteronomy and the book of Exodus, prejudice against idol worship was doctrinally established. Not only that, doctrinally it was established that violence must be practiced and it must be wiped out.
Yeah.
As indeed it was in the entire planet except for a few pockets, largely India. And they were killed, as Amish said, or they were overwritten. Unke jo, the descendants of those people of wisdom, have turned their backs completely on who their ancestors were. And as we have written forward, one of our friends who had come over had said, but आप लोग idol worshipping क्यों बोलते हैं? हम idol worshippers नहीं हैं, हम मूर्ति पूजक हैं. There is a difference क्योंकि हम प्राण प्रतिष्ठा करते हैं. There is a difference. We are not idol worshippers. It's tragic because many of these ancient so-called alien cultures had very elaborate rituals that were related to the idols, the Devis and the Devatas that they worshipped. In the Book of the Dead of Egypt, actually ancient Chem, Egypt ka purana naam Chem tha. The Book of the Dead describes elaborate rituals that were practiced regarding their ancient gods. The oracles in Greece practiced beautiful rituals. तो वो भी अपने तरीके से प्राण प्रतिष्ठा भी करते थे. And this book is primarily a tribute to our own way of life, to once again elicit a deep interest and a need to discover our own way, but also a tribute to those alien cultures of the planet.
Beautifully described. One of the things that we were discussing before we started rolling is that so it's my habit also to ask questions from the perspective of say a viewer who may not be aligned to a particular
As you should,
thought
please.
process. So forgive me if I offend you. So one of the things that's always said in defense is that we are such a big majority. We have 100 plus crore people of Hindus. So why is there victimization syndrome in the Hindus that you always feel threatened, so to speak? The other second popular question that comes from a certain side is that I think this is a particular form of protest, and say idol worshipping can be a choice of an individual. In spite of being a Hindu, you can choose to be not an idol worshipper, is something that I've heard. And thirdly, I lost the question, but I'll get.
Firstly, on the thing of Hindus being a majority.
Yeah.
Look, the blacks are in a majority in South Africa.
Yeah.
You can't say they don't feel the trauma of what they suffered
Right.
for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
The blacks are in a majority in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
You can't say they didn't feel the trauma of what they suffered for the last 150 years. But I must say, the blacks in Zimbabwe are perhaps being too aggressive to the whites today. There are many whites in Zimbabwe being attacked. Whereas India, when we got independence in 1947, we said we'll be secular and liberal. After 1,000 years of suffering.
Yeah.
There's also, it must not be forgotten that Afghanistan was Buddhist once. Pakistan was Hindu once. Bangladesh was Hindu once. The ancient Hindu-Buddhist influence spread far and wide. So it has actually reduced quite drastically. So there is that memory as well. Data should always speak. From the census of 41 to now, you should see in the Indian subcontinent, practically every single country, the minority proportions of populations have collapsed.
Yeah.
Except for two countries, India and Nepal.
Correct.
I won't clarify what's common between these two countries, but it's obvious.
Yeah.
So I am not saying that today's descendants of those invaders should be blamed for what the invaders did. But it cannot be said that that Hindus don't experience the trauma of what happened.
Yeah.
We are in Delhi right now, from the time of the slave dynasty till the British time. So that's over 650 years, right? From around 1200 till 1850. Not one Hindu temple was built out here.
Right.
Not one in Delhi, the capital of our country.
Yeah.
You don't find any standing ancient temple north of Karnataka, anything older than 1,000 years. They're all ruins.
Yeah. In fact, since you mentioned Karnataka, I think people are proud about Tipu Sultan over the years.
If you want to see really ancient temples, you have to go down to Tamil Nadu or Kerala, right? So, but I'm not saying that I don't buy this concept of historical guilt and community guilt.
Yeah.
That is absolutely wrong. But we must speak honestly of what happened. Because remember, some of the structures still survive.
Yeah.
Structures that were built during the Turkic colonial rule and the British colonial rule. So, for example, the British believed that idol worshipping was wrong and evil. So they came up with a law to control only Hindu temples. I don't know how many of your viewers are aware that the government cannot take over a Christian church or a Muslim mosque, but it can very easily take over Hindu temples, and it does.
Yeah.
State governments and national governments across. Hindu lands are appropriated.
Yeah.
the charity that you give to a Hindu temple is not used to, to propagate the religion. In fact, it's used to fund the state government deficit,
Correct.
which is not done to Muslim mosques or Christian churches. This is a legacy of colonial rule, which saw us idol worshippers as evil.
Right.
So there is that reality as well.
Right.
It should not be
Today
denied.
we've inherited those frameworks.
We've inherited those frameworks.
And
No one is saying
particularly
that
challenging.
there should be a vengeance now, unlike what is happening in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, of course.
All we are saying is it should be brought back to the center.
Right.
Unlike, for example, in Pakistan, where there is no right to, all other rights are built on the right to life, right? Minorities have no right to life, they've been wiped out.
Yeah.
Or in Afghanistan, or frankly in Bangladesh before the present government.
Yeah.
Right? The present government in Bangladesh, one must admit, has stabilized the situation. But before that, it came down from, minority proportions come down from 22% to 8.5%. Largely Hindus, Christians and Sikhs in Pakistan, largely backward caste and Dalit Hindus in Bangladesh. But the present government in Bangladesh, I must admit, has stabilized the situation.
Right.
There is this scenario as well, which should not be overlooked. And your
one more
second
thing,
question
yeah.
was, sorry, this was a little long.
Yeah. No,
answer.
please.
Huh.
It's always a pleasure.
And your
to listen
second
to you.
question was,
Second question was regarding, one was about the population, and one more question that I wanted to ask is about how how Hindu texts in particular also refer to violence and war and different kinds of things. So that does not make us any more exclusive than the other faiths is one more thing that we hear from time to time.
With humility, I will state that the Hindu texts are a journey into the inner world. The Gita itself says that the caste system is about guna and karma.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we practice the birth-based caste system. When Arjun asked Sri Krishna, his great questions, Sri Krishna very clearly says that these are clothes. We are the souls. So obviously, the conversation is between the Jivatma and the Paramatma inside. It can be given different perspectives, but primarily not only Hinduism, but the ancient pagan way of life was spiritual. It was a journey inside. They weren't reformist movements trying to reform society, which is what the Abrahamic faiths primarily are. It's an external driven religious impulse to reform society, which comes from a good place. And both politics and imagination, which actually imagination is the forte of the ancient pagan way, the idol worshipping way. Both politics and imagination are essential human traits. And I say politics in its best way. Politics is a good word also. There is something called good politics.
Yeah.
But they are both so endemic to the human experience that invariably the Abrahamic religions, which were created as social reform movements, at the center of which was good politics, developed inner explorative fields, mystical fields. Right. In Judaism, we have the Kabbalah, way of the inner search. In Christianity was born the Gnostic, approach, and in Islam, of course, the Sufi approach. As also in the internal search, explorative-oriented religious ways, political outshoots happen, but they were outshoots. At the center, it is an inner search. These are mystical ways of life that are inward-driven.
What I find very interesting in the book is that in one of your chapters, you have highlighted a very curious fact of how Japan allows its citizens to register themselves as adherents of more than one religion. Do you think, even in principle or as an idea, don't you think it would create chaos in a country like India if you were to do something like that? Although we're tolerant, nobody's saying that we're not tolerant of faith, but to adhere into practice is another thing.
Sharan, this precisely shows how our administration is still a colonial construct. Okay.
That it is.
Because this thing that you can only be practice one religion and nothing else
Yeah.
is a Western and Middle Eastern concept. It's not an Indian concept, it's not a Japanese concept, it's not a Chinese concept, it's not an ancient pagan concept. Look at the actual practice in India. You can say that, in our, for example, Sindhi Hindus, vast majority of Sindhi Hindus also, respect, indeed, worship the Guru Granth Sahib, follow Guru Nanak Dev Ji's, teachings. In a way of looking, they are both Sikhs and Hindus, right? I had gone to Ram Janmabhoomi ji recently. I saw many Sikhs out there. Many don't know that the first protesters who put a murti of Ram Lalla back in the British times, 1858, were actually Sikhs,
Correct. Yeah.
right? So they were Sikhs and Hindus, right? In North India, Gautam Buddha is seen as the ninth avatar of Vishnu. Not in South India, I know, but in North India, right? So actually, they are both Hindus and Buddhists.
Yeah.
Think of the Pew survey of Muslims and Christians in India, which is I always say Indian Islam and Indian Christianity is fundamentally different from the way it is practiced in other parts of the world. 90%, if I remember my stats correctly, but it was close to that. 90% and over 90% of Muslims, Indian Muslims, over 85% of Indian Christians believe in the concept of karma and dharma. But those are Hindu concepts.
Yeah.
So actually, they're both Muslim and Hindu, right? This is the Indian way. There are so many Hindus who will go to Haji Ali Dargah. You must have seen those lovely pictures of Venkateshwara temple in the south, where there are Muslims who come and pray out there. Muslim women in burqas. So, I mean, they're both Muslim and Hindu. This is the Indian way. This thing that you can only follow this religion and all other religions are false. That your God will send you to heaven. Everyone else will go to hell and burn for eternity. These aren't Indian concepts.
Right.
But our state does not recognize it. The Japanese state recognizes the truth of the Japanese society. Our state is still colonial, so they think you can only be a Hindu. You can't be a Sikh as well. You can only be a Hindu. You can't be a Buddhist as well. If they actually open that in the census survey, I'll probably say, yeah, I'm a Hindu. But yes, I go to a Gurudwara as well. So I'm a Sikh as well. I see Gautam Buddha as a ninth avatar. So I'm a Buddhist as well. And you should record all three.
Yeah.
Right? Why not?
May I add to this?
Please.
You said that this line of thinking may bring about chaos. I would say it would be the chaos of the Sagar Manthan. और उससे अमृत निकलेगा. And it is already the truth, in India and large part of the ancient world. I visited the Ranak Dera last December. A Jain, temple, dedicated to Tirthankar Rishabhnath ji. And Jainism is, purportedly not an idol worshipping way of life. But within the precincts itself, there was a temple to Lord Surya, Surya Dev, and Ambama. Indeed, if the Japanese, 67% of the Japanese are Buddhists and 70% of the Japanese are Shintos, wrap your head around it. In the ancient world, it was a completely common, way of life. The Tolmecs of, South America worshipped a very famous god in South America called Quetzalcoatl. Quite a tongue twister. Yeah. And later the Aztecs came and took over from the Tolmecs. The chief deity of the Aztecs was Huitzilopochtli. But they took on Quetzalcoatl as well, who became a very central deity among the Aztecs and quite overthrew Huitzilopochtli, the central deity of the Aztecs. Although I must say, Huitzilopochtli hung around, for dear life. Right. So I think this kind of Sagar Manthan would be good for India, for the world indeed. Yeah. Bring on the chaos.
What do you think is the reason behind portrayal of, say, idol worshipping in popular culture that's there in a certain way? Because obviously, I can't take the names of certain popular movies, but I think everyone knows that even now. And I think it's starting to become unapologetic to an extent where people simply don't care. That is, people in Bollywood and different other film industries in India. Is it because they come from a different background, a different affluent class, that they're perhaps disconnected from the roots of where their religion comes from or where their faith comes from? Or what's the particular reason?
Sharan, I don't see. Uh, I don't see people who don't understand this or make fun of idol worshipping as with hatred or that we need to get after them. No.
Yeah.
I see them as our long lost cousins, and we should just explain our point of view. And many of them are actually well read, intelligent people.
Yeah.
They just haven't been told this point of view, right? To be fair, our education system is also such. You know, I've said this often. It's like पढ़ा लिखा के बच्चे को अंग्रेज बना दो. You know, that's our approach in our education system. We lose touch with so many aspects of our culture, not just Murti Puja, right? So many Indians don't understand the centrality of monsoon in our way of life, the way we build our cities. Why are they such a mess? Because we don't understand the centrality of the rainy season. Our ancestors did, which is why the word for year was the same as the word for rain. The word for the nation was the same as the word for rain, Varsham, Varsh. It was all based on Varsha, because they knew that our entire way of life has to be built around the monsoon.
Correct.
Our education system teaches us there are 4 seasons. Monsoon isn't mentioned in there, right? Summer, autumn, winter, spring, right? It's not just in idol worshipping. In almost every aspect, our education system cuts us off from our culture. So the more educated you become, the less connected you are. So I don't see them with disgust, hatred. It's just, it's not their fault, right? It's those of us who are still connected, we need to speak of it. And we notice that when we speak to people across, they get it, they come back, right? Because they see the inherent beauty in this way of life. And ultimately our heart connects to it in any case, whatever the mind says. Didi had said this beautifully, that even those who reject idol worship, intuitively follow it because the heart connects to it in any case. You should expand on that a bit more.
Because a lot of us who've grown up and studied in convent schools and all of that, we eventually connect with our roots because we've been brought up in a different environment at home. So obviously there is a certain connection, but it has to be tapped at some point.
It has to be tapped, and there
needs to be a trigger.
The further you move away, trust me, the thirst is even stronger. We've seen that in talking to people, because we are such an ancient culture, our roots go so deep, right? The thirst is even stronger.
That's why
all we have to do is just give them that water, they will come.
That's why some of us try to overcompensate.
That the part of us, that has moved away because of our Macaulayan education system is the mind. The heart has always been there.
Right.
And dil khichta hai, dimag questions पूछता है. So maybe in a very, very humble and small way, this book is an effort to align the heart and the mind, together and root us more strongly.
I have one very particular question. At one point in your book, you've mentioned how there has been attempts made by some quarters portraying Ravan and Mahabali as southern heroes, defeated by Aryan or North Indian gods on the name of Dravidian assertion. Without going too much into the politics of it, why do you believe that this narrative is flawed? Because it's frankly ridiculous that this has been going on even 70, 80 years almost after the time that we got our independence. But I think, coming from you, it will mean a lot.
Sharan, I've studied in Tamil Nadu, by the way. Okay, so in Lawrence School, Uti.
Okay.
So I read Ponniyin Selvan when it wasn't fashionable for a North Indian to read Ponniyin Selvan. I read it in the 1980s, okay? You'll find, let's just take the example of Ravan. None of the ancient texts say that he was from south. In fact, the Kamba Ramayanam itself, which is the Tamil version, 1,000 years old, it doesn't make this claim. The Sangam literature doesn't make that claim. In fact, the Sangam literature is very respectful of Lord Ram, Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh, all of them. And in fact, the most ancient versions of the Ramayana say that Ravan was actually from close to Delhi, right?
Yeah.
So he was a North Indian boy, close to Delhi, close to Noida apparently. That's where he was. Yeah. No, there's a place called Bishrak.
Yeah.
So which is where apparently he was born. That's where his father's
There's a
thing was.
temple.
That's the outline.
Yeah, and he went from there to Lanka and he actually deposed his his, some versions say half brother, some versions say Guru Bhai Kuber. He deposed him and then took over, right? So actually Ravan was a North Indian Brahmin boy who came from Delhi to the south. And in fact, I had asked this question in Chennai, and I said as a joke that if you in Chennai see a Delhi Brahmin boy as a hero, I see this as national integration. But none of the ancient, no, they laughed. None of the ancient texts say he was from the south. None. In fact, the purported temples to Ravan in the south are all maximum 50, 100 years old. The most ancient temples to Ravan are actually all in North India. There are temples to Ravan in North India, by the way. Okay, in Kannauj, in Bishrak, which is close to Noida, there's a temple to his wife Mandodari in the MP Rajasthan border. So no, and again with Mahabali is the same thing.
Right.
So he was also from the north. But in fact, the traditions say that Lord Manu had actually come from the south. He was a Pandyan prince.
Okay.
In ancient Vevaswata Manu, the Manu of our Manvantar, and had come from the Tamil lands. So there was a lot of intermingling
Yeah.
in ancient times. But no, there's no evidence, ancient evidence that Ravan was from the south.
Right.
Sharan, may I add a little personal anecdote to it? I have three brothers. One is 2 years younger, and then, of course, the twins, Amish and his twin, who are 8 years younger than me. From times immemorial, from my childhood, when I had just one brother, and then later these two came along, my grandfather had taught me how to tie the Raki to, my brothers. And each North Indian, indeed South Indian, all Hindu sisters, when they tie a Rakhi to their brothers, they are supposed to say, Yena Baddho Baliraja Danavendro Mahabala. I tie this thread to you of protection, the same that was tied to Mahabali, the mighty, the charitable.
Right.
All North Indians, I say this, and the priests, the gurus, when they tie the kalava after after puja, they say this as they tie the Rakhi.
It's a North Indian thing.
Yeah.
Right.
To
I think
Mahabali.
Raki is quite popular in the
and-
south too.
Yeah.
But I think I'm sure this
The point
particular
is that it's to
practice.
Mahabali.
Ha.
It respects Mahabali
Right.
in
Because
North India.
Sri
It
Lakshmi
shows.
ji tied the Rakhi to
Mahabali. That was-
Baliraja.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the tradition. That the first Rakhi was tied by Sri Lakshmi ji. That's one of the to
Baliraja
Mahabali.
on Shravan Purnima.
Right. You also describe the concept of Ishta Devata, and I think a lot of youngsters are not even aware of the particular concept and why it's very important to Dharma. If you could explain the entire concept, some of the concepts that you've already also addressed in not just idols but also Dharma, and why it's important for each one of us to understand some of these concepts that are perhaps central to Hinduism.
Do you want to explain Ishta Devata? You explain it very well.
Ishtadevata, Sharan, is our chosen deity. It could be, he could be a deva, he could be a devi. And we don't choose our Ishtadevata or Ishtadevi. The deity chooses us. We get pulled, not understanding why we are getting pulled. It's a little like falling in love. You don't know why you're pulled, to one human being, but you're just pulled and you feel it. Biochemically in your system when you fall in love. Similarly, the Devata pulls you. My husband's Ishta Devata was Ganeshji, Amish's Ishta Devata is Lord Shiva. My Ishta Devata, as I was growing up, was Lord Shiva. Happens to be, Sri Krishna now. My mother's Ishta Devi was Ma, Durga Ma. And somehow Durga Ma never really pulled me. After marriage, she is our Ishta Devi, Amba Ma. She never pulled me except for one period in my life when my husband fell ill. And 2.5 years when we fought this terrible war against this terrible illness.
Right.
And Ma pulled me. I would go to her temple and I would cry and I would shed my fears, my anxiety, my desperation, sheer terror of what I am faced with in life. And she pulled me again and again. I would go to her, I would cry, I would internally cleanse myself and then go back home and engage in the battle that we were fighting, my husband and I, for 2.5 years. I don't try and understand with my mind. My heart knows Ma pulled me for those 2.5 years, and I'm grateful that she did. It's a heart thing, not a mind thing, and each of us have to make this journey individually.
Thank you so much for that beautiful answer. Any last parting thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. Amish, will begin with you.
There is a beauty in our way of life, which our ancestors against severe odds kept alive.
Yeah.
It would be saddest if we lose it in this period of peace. I mean,
Or at least not
after
know the
a
reason
thousand
behind
years, after 1,000 years post 1947, we've had a period of peace that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
We are forgetting that just 100 years before that, armies would march right into the heartland of our country.
Yeah.
No one was safe. And if our ancestors could keep this beautiful culture alive for so long against such odds, it'll be sad if we lose it now just because we are lost in malls and our Instagram feed. I'm not against that. Let's enjoy it. But there is a beauty and strength that these traditions give to us. There's an intuitive liberalism that comes. There's that rare mixture of traditions and liberalism that our religion, our way of life can give you. I've seen in the West that you're asked to pick either liberalism or traditions. You can't have both. Either science or religion. You can't have both.
Right.
Right. And either of those choices is not a good choice actually.
But we are not
Fortunately,
forced with
our
that
religion
binary.
gives you can have both.
Yeah.
You can be a space scientist and still take components of the rocket to a temple and pray. You can be deeply traditional and see men and women as equal as our family does.
Right.
You can actually have it both, and our religion actually gives that. We must explore the philosophies of this way of life. That's what we are trying to present through these books, and I hope the kids like it.
Bhavna?
In discovering the world of idol worshipping, I think to a large extent we can discover ourselves. And it's a joyful ride, and we advocate it for one and all.
And I'm sure it'll be a joyful ride to read your book as well.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Bhavna and Amish. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you may make your plug now.
No, I think the last answer was a good plug already. But these two books, Dharma and Idols, can be read together. They are companion pieces. They are philosophical books, but they've been written in a very easy conversational style. The way our Upanishadic dialogues were, the Socratic dialogues were. So there are different points of view spoken through characters, and you can just read it in a very easy, relaxed way. You can get deeper into our philosophies and explore why we are such proud dharmics, such proud idol worshippers. Why we think it gives us meaning. We passed through a very difficult personal phase over the last 7-8 years, our entire family. And if there's something that has pulled us together, it's the strength of our family and the philosophies that we have learnt. of our traditions. Do check them out. We hope you like it. Thank you.
Do check out Idols. It's available online and in all the bookstores. Thank you so much for tuning in, and do let us know what you thought about this particular episode in the comment section below, and please forgive me for being so asthmatic throughout the episode. I have the Delhi air to blame, which show you. Thank you so much, Amish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.